So I'm super excited to be speaking with one of the most revered people in media research globally, the founder of Research Measurement Technologies, author and media futurist, Bill Harvey. Welcome, Bill. It's really brilliant to be catching up with you today.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the work that you've been doing. It's very inspiring.
Oh, thanks, Bill. So, look, people have superheroes, and being the data obsessed kind of nerd that I am, Bill, you are really one of mine. You've spent a lifetime at the intersection of media and behavioral science and human responses and bringing real science and data to our sector, which is so desperately needed. Please take us back. What started this for you, and how did you become so obsessed with the science in our industry?
I guess I've always been obsessed with science, and the universe uh, guided me into the advertising industry, into media research. I had nothing to do with it. I could have easily wound up any place because I was taking interviews fairly randomly when I got out of school. Uh, and I wound up in something that I fantastically loved from the beginning and wanted to jump into it. But I had already been a science maniac, from my earliest memories, and read everything I could find in science fiction and science fact, and was going to study physics, but I wound up being more interested in philosophy and psychology. So um, that's where a lot of my advertising work comes from, is from the psychological background that I had.
And for as long my 30 years in the industry, for that whole length of time, it's always been discussed that 50% of what we spend is unaccounted for and we don't know which half is working. And in today's world, Bill, we're still there. In fact, I feel like we're even worse because now we've overlaid fraud and, visibility and all these other things on top of it. Can you believe we're in this place now? And are you feeling hopeful about how we move beyond this?
Well, I am. I think it's a very hopeful sign that all media are moving towards greater at scale measurability.
Yeah.
And that gives us more information to make better decisions. It can be done with full privacy protection. We showed that with TRA. It was,
Yeah.
so privacy secure. We raised our hands and volunteered to go to Washington to tell people what we were doing so that they could use these methods. And but I'm also hopeful because during most of my advertising career, there was a kind of a religious belief that you would never be able to measure the sales effects of advertising. So it was direct response. And
Mm.
I was a believer in it because everyone else was, and people I looked up to were, and so on. But it always bothered me because A, I don't like the idea of impossibilities.
Mm.
B, it seemed to me like we should be able to do it, particularly when we got to the 90s and I had my Next Century Media company.
Mm.
We were we had the first set-top box data, and we were matching it with Polk auto registration data. And I said, aren't we measuring the sales effects now? I mean, it's longitudinal. The
Mm.
households being tracked over time. We have historical data on what cars they bought for the last 20 years on top of what they're buying now. We can relate that to, at the time, at least the television part of their ad exposure, which generally for back in those days was 80 or 90% of the budget anyway. Um, so now it's widely accepted that we can measure the sales effects of advertising. I think that removing that restriction on our thinking is a very positive sign. But
Mm.
the positive sign is that there are people like you and uh, people like Mark Pritchard and many people now in the advertising industry understand that as long as you keep looking at your customers only as mobile wallets and
Mm.
their pockets, um, you're going to have minimum return on investment for anything you do.
Mm.
Advertising won't be authentic. It won't touch people's hearts. It won't bond you as a with that person as a friend. Uh, there won't be any brand love, and yet you can achieve all those things. You can achieve brand love by being authentic, being part of the rest of the fabric of the universe, trying to give back, not just take. And that's incredibly hopeful.
We saw many brands boycott Facebook in the Stop Hate for Profit campaign, but you know, people are really looking to brands to lead the way. Do you think they have a bigger role to play in that whole construct of society?
It's very clear now that the general public wants help somewhere, and they don't trust the government.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in the US right now, maybe not everywhere, but many places, people distrust large institutions of any kind. Even some people distrust nonprofit institutions, and
Mm.
distrust a lot of things, and distrust the next stranger they meet. And there's such vast amounts of distrust. And most when it takes the bombardment, retargeting, easy way out, check the box, cookie cutter. This is the way it's done. This is the way everybody else is doing it. Follow the herd. You keep your head down, keep your job, do everything just like everybody else. As long as you stay in that mode, you're not doing it. You're fanning the flames of distrust. You're just fitting the
Yeah,
negative expectation they have of you. It's only
yeah.
a positive surprise of doing something vastly different that you get them on you gradually earn their trust.
Yeah, and that's right? We've got to remember that as brands, we've got to love first to get the love back. I mean, you know, I think about, I was looking at some stats the other day. On average, we're delivered between 6,000, each human being in the US, UK is delivered between 6,000 and 10,000 ad impressions every day, compared to 500 in 1970. And so the whole question becomes, when does this just become bombardment and wallpaper? You wonder if at that level anything can cut through.
Well,
You know,
the environments of digital and TV, um, not counting premium digital video, which is TV, um, but with that exception, just looking at TV and digital, the environment in digital is so distractive that um, even when I'm reading something that I like to read, I have to continually adjust the page and scroll because it keeps loading ads. So
I know, right?
what was I looking at? And and that's in a good environment. I won't name names, but
Oh, go on, Bill.
oh well, the Guardian, say, the Guardian. I like reading the Guardian, and I
I
like
like the
reading the Wall
Guardian.
Street Journal. But this crazy, and those are premium, high CPM digital, and yet it's the same problem of trying to keep your eye on the text that you're interested in, the reason why you're there, while all this stuff is going on crazy in the background. It's not necessarily that the ads are in motion internally in the ad. They're not necessarily video or rich media flash or anything like that, but their appearance on the screen and the way the screen automatically readjusts itself makes the thing very distractive.
Fully. You know, we've got this hot, because at WeAre8, we deliver an ad, double opt-in, directly to someone, and they are signing up for it. It's a clear value exchange. They're watching it at a time of day that suits them. And so they've got this attention versus interruption. And I was trying to research for any information on, you know, the mindset value of attention versus interruption. And I couldn't actually find any large scale studies. I thought, how do we exist in an industry where there's $500 billion spent around the world and we don't have some massive cognitive behavioral study in our space that's actually tested what does that interruption mean? What percentage is cutting through? I mean, I was shocked at how little I could find, Bill. Am I missing something, or have the studies just not been done?
Uh, they haven't been done enough, but let me give you a little bit more on that. I mean, there's companies like Adelaide, I'm on the advisory board of, uh,
Mm,
and they are predictive attention. So they've looked at and found correlations between certain signals that they can read in the bid stream of programmatic real-time buying, and then say, oh, that's a distractive environment. I better not bid on that one,
oh, wow.
or the bid or whatever. And I'm helping them just begin the long journey of proving that, like we did with driver
Mm,
third parties like Nielsen Catalina or whoever it takes. Uh,
yeah.
and then there are people, particularly in the UK with Max Kalehoff, his company Realize, and another company Lumen, that
Mm,
great work in measuring attention, but it's really under forced exposure conditions. It's not in the wild under natural conditions. So you get relative answers, A is better than B, but you're still not getting the real, what you're looking for. Like going back to 2003, the ARF published, we had worked on it for 4 years at that point, Erwin Efron, myself, Jim Spaeth, Bill Moran, Denman Maroney. And it was the new ARF model, the updated ARF model,
mm,
50 years. And we added attention.
mm,
Never been in the hierarchy of effects. There was always vehicle distribution, uh,
mm,
vehicle exposure, ad exposure.
mm,
It wasn't detention, but we added it. And then there were measures of ad communication, like recall and so on. Then the supreme measure of ad communication, persuasion, and
mm.
interaction with the ad, and then actually buying the product.
Yeah.
I wanted to have above that brand loyalty, brand love, net promoter, brand equity. And someday we will get those things added. But at the time, there was resistance to going too far afield from where we started. So we went from 6 measures to 8 measures. At any rate, what I've always wanted to do next, but it's hard to do, uh, not scientifically, it's hard to do in terms of organizing people and motivating them to do it. They kind of feel like they've got it all done already, is to calibrate all of the lower measures to the sales measure. So you can see attention is worth 15% of 40%, whatever it is, of the measure that most people care about the most right now. Although brand equity and consumer lifetime value is really more important. That's really correlated with brand love and trust and so on. At any rate, that's work to be done in the future. I'll send you more data on what I've got on attention, but the way the industry, in their reductionist ways, the bias towards let's make this simple and so on and so forth, they simply accept the idea attention may not be sufficient to make a sale, but it's necessary. And that's largely true. Now, Gallup and Robinson did do some studies a long time ago which showed that even when people weren't paying attention, advertising still has some trickle effect into the subconscious, about 15% of the effective attentive consumption of an ad. So a lot of random facts around the attention issue.
No, I love it. And when I think about television, and you were right at the leading edge of pushing all of the effectiveness. I mean, you were really building the whole foundation upon which they sold and still sell themselves today. But it feels like there was this beautiful value exchange with the consumer with broadcast TV. We'd get beautiful content that they invested in and they bought to us. And then we knew that the deal was we get this beautiful content and in return, we watch some ads. And it felt very perfect for the television medium. And then I feel digital came along and social, and those were transformational technologies that connected us in all sorts of different ways. But we never rethought or reinvented the ad construct that went alongside that. We took digital ads with unlimited inventory and just jammed them in to a digital, very personalized in format that now feel invasive and abrasive and everything we get today. And then all the tech middlemen just added layers to it. So we just are constantly followed and tracked and bombarded. And I mean, we believe it's time out. We've jumped the shark. You know, it's time to reinvent an ad solution for digital. It's not just video. You know, video ad was perfect for TV. Let's rethink a more personal, let's deliver someone a video ad, but on their terms. Let's remember there's a human being on the other side of this, you know. Do you feel that we have jumped the shark, that we need to, that the digital advertising is ready for reinvention?
Yeah, and the reason that such a situation can come about, although it defies common sense, consumer has a clearer picture of how ridiculous it is than practitioners, because everybody's in their own, you know, headspace and groupthink and so on and so. Anyway, is the value of an impression, as if impression.
Yes, Bill, I
What?
love you. It's a mental metric.
Yeah, it's often valueless or negatively impactful. It makes somebody mad at you if they can actually remember who sent me that ad at that point in time. And the whole demeaning idea of skipping 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 isn't what you want to convey. You want the ad to be something, you know. There was this guy, copywriter at Burnett a long time ago, great copywriter and human being, John Bergen, who coined the term viewer reward advertising. He was talking about television, but also magazines and other media, where the reward, it's easy to see one aspect of this is humor in commercials. You know, BBDO was, you know, great, still is great at putting humor into commercials, and that's a form of viewer reward. But there's also being able to touch people's hearts with something that's inspiring or uplifting, and you know, local heroes who are doing something good for no reason, cleaning up the neighborhood, and whatever it might be. So the idea of viewer reward, I then did some work with Andrew Sussman, and we did the first digital branded content. He had a company called Studio One, and it created what is now called Native.
Wow.
But what we found was that it had 7 times the impact of the average TV commercial. And what it was just good content brought to you by Bounty, or brought to you by Volvo, or brought to you by Carnation Instant Baby Formula. And it was so counterintuitive for the consumer. This was in the early days of digital, but it was already heading in the banner bombardment direction. This stood out from that because it brought you good content, interesting, uplifting. Like, for example, My Baby Today was for expectant and new mothers and other mothers and grandparents of new grandchildren or existing grandchildren, but it was about motherhood and babies. And it was good information. And it always said, if you can, we recommend breastfeeding. Don't buy our product or certainly any other form of baby formula. Use breastfeeding. If you, for any reason you can't, we do have the most concerned, blah, 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 best. So that had enormous effect, much more than 7 times the effect of commercials. Volvo sponsored, this was the first time in history that you could actually look into the annual New York Auto Show in Javits Center without going there physically. It was on Yahoo. No, it was new coverage daily, and the coverage went on for the length of the auto show, and it was showing you all the different cars, the new Chryslers, the new Fords, the new this, the new that, and there's a little thing on the page, brought to you by Volvo for life. The Volvo advertising all of its competitors. How counterintuitive could that be? So we found by random control trial that people who didn't see the Volvo on the page, the holdout group, which was randomly equal and identical to the people who did see it on the page, only 2% of them said in the exit interview that they were planning to buy or consider a Volvo in the cars the next time they buy a new car. And they didn't know Volvo was connected with the study because they had never seen the Volvo on the page. Even if they came back over and over, they saw the unsponsored control. But it was 8% among the people who saw the sponsorship.
Wow.
Times as much. And when you multiply that out by the margin on a car times blah, 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 it's an extremely high projected ROI. So the effect for advertisers of taking the approach that you're taking with WeAre8 is destined to take over and rule because it works. It's true. And it can be proven. And it's only a matter of being discovered against the enormous inertia and herd, keep my head down, everybody else is fired or whatever. I don't want to get fired. I don't want to bring up anything new. I don't want to try to change things. What does the boss say? I just want to go with that. This is the way we've always done it. Fine. I'm not going to take any risk, personal risk. That's the environment that has to be it'll be overcome.
Oh God, I love you, Bill, for saying that. You know, because no one ever got sacked for buying Google or Facebook, right?
Right. It's got a
But
1,000 impressions.
that's right. I mean, we were asking, just as a sort of a very non-scientific experiment, we each asked 10 people their definition of a digital impression. These are industry leaders, but everyone had a different definition. And yet, I mean, the actual definition is what? The opportunity to see the ad. So it's not, it gets into this whole rabbit hole of just because it's served doesn't mean it's consciously or unconsciously even seen. You know, this whole debate, we've got an entirely flawed metric that no one in the industry can really define. And then when we started digging deeper, we were looking at, well, a video view on Facebook is 3 seconds. So 1, 2, 3. I mean, you know, how insane. And then a full video view is considered 10 seconds. So it's not even a fully completed video view on Facebook is 10 seconds. It's not even 15 or 30. So in our world, the brand doesn't pay unless someone watches the full video. And by the way, people are happy to watch the full video because they're changing the world every time they watch one with the brand, and they're getting paid and valued. So it's this beautiful look. I'm thank you for your support, because I feel in the next 12 months it's going to tip as more people stand together and call on brands to value them, particularly in a world where, you know, 99.9% of people are under so much economic pressure. As brands, how can we be paying the tech fat cats, middlemen, when people need our help? You know, it's almost unconscionable that we're not putting our money with the people, right? So it's a just. I mean, I personally am very driven by the injustice, and then the science. I just need you, Bill, to do large scale studies with me so that it's all science and data driven, because it makes such intuitive sense. We're seeing in the data, people are telling us they're feeling loved, valued. I mean, the words that they use to tell us how they're feeling when brands value them, it's amazing. I'm just super keen to put more science behind it, because I don't know how the big guys have kept perpetuating the impression metric, right? Do you think? I mean, it sort of calls into question our whole industry and what we've been spending billions of dollars on. What do you think is the catalyst to break that, or have enough people questioning that metric?
It's the right question to ask. It's more confidence in the ability to measure the ROI
Yeah.
and also the emotional bonding effect. Those effects, brand equity, let's call it,
Yeah.
the long-term brand equity effect and the short-term sales performance effects. If um, one can engender enough confidence in those metrics, right now people are using them and
Mm.
they're not using them for sure, but they're using them with tongue in cheek. And talk to any CMO and they'll say, look, every time I do a study, I'm looking at positive brand lifts. And if all of these were true, our stock price would be shooting up. I'd be getting a bonus. We have, you know,
Right.
we can really see how much money we're making from our bank accounts. And
Mm.
when we look at these results, we're being told, we know it's wrong, but it's better to use it than not use it. And maybe A, B is, if they say A was better than B, maybe that's true. So we can still make decisions. We can choose whichever one was higher in those metrics, but that's not confidence. The confidence
Mm.
be built. We did it at TRA. We did it painstakingly. Nobody's really done it since, to the degree where Kraft stood up with us, Mars stood up with us, MediaVest stood up with us, Group M stood up with us at the ARF, not anonymized studies, but standing right next to the client saying, yes, we got these results, and the bank account showed it too. I'd made up the term bank account validation, meaning,
I love it.
you to just look at TRA showed you got this lift. You tell me what lift you really got in the bank account, and I'll be able to improve my measures by calibrating it to the truth. And we did that. We did that for a number of years, but it hasn't gone further than that, and we got to bring that back. And I think you'll wind up bringing that back, and I'll help any way I can. For years, going back, dating myself to the 70s. In the 70s, I brought the CEO of J. Walter Thompson, Don Johnston, and the executive vice president of Gray, Larry Deckinger, an idea. I said, look, this is mostly intuitive. I got some research. I gave them a pound of research, just, they didn't really want to do more than flip through it. But they agreed with me that the most brands weren't being bought loyally. So much promotion was already being used that today it's 5 times as much spent in price discounting promotion.
Really?
Then, yeah, 5 times as much as in advertising. Then it was only 3 times as much.
Wow.
And we said it's devaluing brands and it's broken brand loyalty. So everybody multiple brand user because they're buying on deal, and we're training them to buy on deal.
Yeah.
It cut Maxwell House's share from 8% to 4%, never recovered, never went above the 4% after that. So I said, also the TV commercials we're using are trying to create fictive differences between brands where the consumer already knows these deodorants are all having equal effect. I tried this one, I tried that one. I'm going to buy the cheaper one. Which one is cheaper today? So instead of trying to build fictional differences between brands that people are just going to not trust you even more if you try to fictionally convince them of a brand advantage, put on little 30-second mini shows that people will be grateful for and then brought to you by Secret or whatever. And so I'm still arguing that today. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to make it happen because people like Mark Pritchard, whoever, are going to take the work that they do with your population, the people who are in the game and who are doing things in their local community or trying to do things globally to make the world better, and doing it with brands. So brands are going to have something to talk about. They can make commercials about it and bring individuals into the commercials, the actual individuals, and make a 30-second mini program about it brought to you by XYZ brand. That's what happened.
Oh my God, Bill, I have goosebumps because that is the future, right? Because for the first time, we've got someone's attention. They're feeling valued, just, that whole the medium is the message. It truly is. So you're now valuing someone when you deliver it. So what are you going to say to them? You don't just have to pummel them with an ad. You can get really creative. As a,
Yes.
as a CEO, you can be talking about your values and your commitment to the planet. As
Yes.
a brand, you could even do, I mean, in questions, you could say, what are your favorite pieces of content? You know, The Guardian, Wall Street Journal. I'm going to deliver you little 25 seconds of Wall Street Journal content brought to you by whoever. So the
Yes.
idea, and imagine getting paid, delivered content we love, connecting with brands, getting paid for our time, feeling valued, and changing the world at the same time. Because I know P&G is making a donation to Feeding America when I watch this. It's almost it's win-win, because what you're talking about is the ultimate extension of the technology that we've built. We've built the technology to make it for super easy for brands to deliver a message to the individual at scale and measure all of the results of that. Now, what you do with that, the content integrations, what you say to them, that's what you're talking about is, not surprisingly, way ahead of the curve, because it's when brands realize that, wow, I don't just have to do a 30-second ad. I could just speak my truth, you know, and oh my God, I'm going to fall in love with you, brand, if you do that. If you speak your truth, if you value me, if you care about the planet, if you create products that I love, then I'm going to buy them. You know, it's such a you know, it's so broken today. I feel this massive injustice that drives me. Now we've just got to get those innovative leaders to lead the way. We've built the tech through the mobile operators. We've got the reach. Now let's all have a party together. Bill?
Yeah. Yeah. It's you've created kind of like a spiritual UN bonding between brands and consumers to save the world.
It's kind of,
Better
I
than
know,
that.
I love that definition. Because do you know what? I even had this crazy idea, and I can share this with you, about having this gigantic cheer squad. So almost like, you know, when brands step up and do the right thing, when they put their money, you know, with back to people, back to the planet, do the right thing, that essentially, rather than the anger that's come before, you know, it's a people are angry about corporations, they're angry that they're giving all the money to shareholders. If we flip that and help brands value their customers and the people that keep them alive before their shareholders, then it can be joyful, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they don't have to be scared, right? Because it's all about fear. Whether you're a brand, whether you're a person, it's you know, it's just trying to address that fear and realizing it's much happier when you love the people that you want to reach.
Yeah. It's Kim Frank at Geopath did an interview with me, and I think it's coming out today, or no, it actually came out yesterday. Um, and at the end, she, you know, she's in the outdoor business, the outdoor medium. And she asked me, we'd been talking shop for the interview. She asked me a non-shop question at the very end. She said, if you could put a message on every outdoor billboard in America, what would the message be? And I said, focusing less on the problem and more on the solution.
Wow, I love that, Bill.
And then what you're saying about, you know, fear, we can focus on all of the problems we've got and the challenges, but it would be more fruitful to focus on the solutions.
Yeah.
You know, we've defined the problems already.
Yeah.
We know everything, but we need a lot more focus on visualizing the way we want it to be and working toward making that happen with a sense of confidence and courage. that'll make it happen. But while we keep imagining the worst, we're actually helping to create that.
So I'm going to go there, Bill. So you've written 3 amazing books. I've read Mind Magic. I've just ordered the second one, all
You
about
are
the
the universe.
You Are the Universe. Just imagine. I can just imagine, actually. So I can't wait to read it. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's about?
Well, it's an attempt to reconcile, to at least illustrate that it's possible scientifically for God to actually exist. And therefore, it's possible that religion isn't just imagination, but it also may have a basis in our ability to have psychic powers. That could be the scientific underpinning of religion. The origin of the religion discovered he or she had some extra powers that we actually all do have, uh, remain latent in us for as long as we believe they're impossible. So if the culture says no, that's imaginary, that's kind of like the tooth fairy. As long as we go around with that assumption,
Then that's reality.
yeah. But if we notice that we often have accurate hunches, and just pay attention to the fact that we all have accurate hunches, that powers. Sometimes we do read each other's minds, but we quickly move on from there. We say, well, coincidence.
Do you know, I just read, and his name's escaped me. He's 99 years old. He's a brilliant engineer and scientist. He's just written this incredible book about the birth of AI as the next species. But he, like you, talk about telepathic communication and powers. I'm also believe in humanity's untapped potential. And if we believe that AI has been born, which he believes it has as the kind of next species, then as humanity, we really need to start working together and elevating, each other and vibrating at a higher level and supporting each other and in order to really protect humanity and the planet, right? We've got 8 years to protect the planet. Only 8 years, Bill. And it's not working the way it is. The greed, the everything that's happening today, it's just not working. And we've got entire generations of Gen Zs and millennials that are concerned about that. And so we need to imagine everything that you're talking about, and I can't wait to read it, Bill. I could speak to you for hours, and I think it's very beautiful that this scientist talks about, because science has been so male-led, that intuition is largely, it's in all of us, but because women have been suppressed in science, we have not given credibility to intuition as much as we have scientific fact. And therefore, we're not getting the best of both kind of theories and mindsets, because we don't value intuition as much as we should, and don't value energetic feelings and all of that. And when I get really inspired when I hear you talk and when I read his book, because I just think we're at a point now where we are bringing science together with emotions, and when we use the money and muscle of brands, we can really drive unimaginable change.
We've known for a long time that the private sector tends to be more efficient than the public sector. And the distrust for government, and the desire to make the world a better place, which is becoming urgent as we're killing ourselves by various means. I believe that if we don't stop deforestation, we're going to have pandemics. They'll go on forever, because I believe it comes from displacing things like bats that normally stay in their own habitat, but then we remove the habitat, they come into our habitat, and they're immune to all kinds of viruses they carry that we've never been exposed to.
Mm.
So, that the envy among countries, the envy among people, like
Mm.
billionaires every year during the pandemic, they got more rich than
Bigger.
before.
I know.
This makes people very angry, and it makes
Yeah.
go out and hurt someone, uh,
Mm.
randomly, which is happening to great ever distress and horror. Um, you're trying to rechannel us, and I'm trying to help rechannel us into visioning more positively. Even if some of my visions, like if you look at my latest blog post, Pebbles in the Pond, it's a fictional meeting between Biden, uh, Xi Jinping, and I call him Vlad in the story, Vladimir Putin, at Esalen, sitting in hot tubs side by side, watching the sunset. And,
Oh,
what are the different scenarios? We can continue to bicker and hate each other and try to, get something up, kind of like recreate the Cold War. Uh, or we can maybe figure out, how do we create win-win situations? We're all very smart. Couldn't
yeah,
come up with couldn't we at least try some win-win situation?
absolutely.
So I may come up with some over-the-top ways of communicating the possibilities, but if you just take it with a grain of salt and notch it down a little, there is a reality opportunity to seek win-win solutions.
Mm. And you know what? Even though we've built a transformative kind of solution in the ad space, because it puts people, the largest ad stakeholder, right at the core of everything, and people can get paid for watching ads for 2 minutes a day. The reality is the real magic is going to come from us all being connected. And that's what you talk about. And I don't think we've even imagined, I look at Facebook and I think of all the horrific, they've connected us, which is great technology, but they've also created some shocking, they fuel hate, all the shocking things they do. But I think by far the worst thing is what they haven't done, because they connect 2 billion people on the planet, and yet they never unite 2 billion people on the planet around anything, around any action. And that's what, when I talk to you, I get excited about the untapped potential of that. And when people can unite around something for the planet for 2 minutes a day, what is possible then? And that it's the unity. I mean, that single action that can help me pay my mobile bill, bring it on. I love it. But I just wonder, Bill, the power of humanity to really work together at that scale. Technology exists, the tech exists. Now we've just got to feel
Seize
it
the
and do
day.
it.
Yeah.
And somehow we've got to get that impression language with all of those that control the money to see the power in valuing the people rather than paying the middlemen.
Yes.
Bill, I'd love to, I mean, we can talk about this offline, but love to talk to you about how we can do some really scaled studies. You really are a superhero to me. I love what you've done in our industry to put it so far ahead. I look at what you did in television, and it really, I still think television is such a brilliant medium, actually. And I'm super excited about the opportunity to work with you. Thank you so much for
Thank
catching
you.
up today.
I look forward to that.